everyone, my name is Millie and welcome to The Performing Arts of Me. I'm currently at London Studio Centre on a theatre dance degree on the musical theatre pathway, and last year I did a foundation year at Berg College. I make videos about the performing arts, my general life experiences and things like that, so if you're interested please do subscribe. In today's video I'm going to be talking about applications. I'm going to be talking about like my tips slash advice slash things that I think you might want to have prepared. I'm going to be talking about it from a point of view of applying to drama schools slash dance colleges, performing arts colleges, rather than applying to unis, because I think applying to universities to do like a performing arts subject would be a little more similar to applying to universities to do other subjects. So hopefully if you are looking to apply to universities to do courses like that, you might be able to find a bit more about it on like UCAS website and things like that. Whereas I think applying to courses at places like drama schools is perhaps a little bit different for some schools at least. So yeah, that's more what I'm going to be focusing on in this video, but I guess some of these tips might be relevant if you are applying to a university too. Also, these are just things that I've come up with, and you can take or leave as much or as little as you want of it. Also, a lot of this will probably just depend on the school, so some of this might not be relevant for the schools that you're applying to, or the courses that you're applying to. Also, if you're an international student applying to study in the UK, I don't really know about that because I'm from the UK. So some of these things might still be helpful, but I don't know if some of them will be different. And as always, just in general, if there's something you need to know, don't rely on what I've said. Please check it with the schools or whatever source you need to make sure that you have the information that you need. Also, just quickly, most if not all of the courses that I applied to as my first choice were degree courses because I wanted to do a degree course, but I think some schools did give you the option of indicating if you were interested in other courses, or like if you had a second choice of course, which one you might want to apply to, etc, etc, etc. For some schools I think I did put down like the diploma course, for example, as my second choice of course, but I think my first choice for every school was a degree course. Okay, so I'm now going to talk a little bit about my applications, like how I applied. So for different schools it varied, but I did some applications through UCAS, some through UCAS conservatoires and some directly to the schools themselves. So if you don't know what UCAS is, it's basically the main way that you apply to universities in the UK. You can go online, I think their website is just called ucas.com, and you can go and find information about them on their website. When I was doing it, you get 5 choices with your initial application. There is also something called UCAS Extra, but I'm not 100% sure how that works because I didn't end up using that. So yeah, you might want to do your own research into that. But so that's UCAS. There's also something called UCAS conservatoires. This is basically where some conservatoires, that's how you apply to some of them. There's a list of them. I can't remember all the schools off the top of my head, but the one I applied to through UCAS conservatoires when I was doing it was Trinity Laban. So yeah, it's a very similar form to the UCAS form, but there's a couple of bits that are a bit different, and from what I understand you can't apply to those schools through UCAS, you have to do it through UCAS conservatoires. And I think when I was doing it you got 6 choices on UCAS conservatoires, but I didn't use all of mine. For some schools, they want you to apply directly to the school, and those forms can be quite different. When I was doing it, some schools did ask for you to apply to UCAS and then also send them a form of their own, or I think at least one of them for me wanted me to apply to UCAS, and then after they'd received my UCAS application, they would contact me with a form, and then I would then fill out that form, which would then go directly to them. So it can be very different depending on the school. So my first tip is to make sure you know which way they want you to apply, and also check deadlines. I think the UCAS application deadline is coming up in January, I want to say. I think it was around that time for me, but I'm not applying this year, so please check that if that's something you need to know. But yeah, anyway, if you're applying directly to schools, they might have other deadlines, so try and keep on top of your deadlines. Also, it could be that some schools, if they've got a form that goes to them and a UCAS form, they might want them, you know, within the space of a week, for example, they want to receive both forms. So just check if there's something like that when you're applying. Okay, so I'm now going to talk about some things that I think it's worth you may be having prepared before you sit down to do your applications. You could choose to do it as you go along. So the first thing is a UCAS personal statement. Obviously, if you're not applying to any schools through UCAS, then you probably don't need one of these. But a UCAS personal statement, when I was applying, UCAS gave you a space to put in your personal statement. It had like a character limit on it. When I was applying to UCAS, I think both times actually, I applied to 5 schools through UCAS. And the personal statement went to all of them, so I didn't want to make it too specific to any one school because it was going to the 5 courses that I was applying to. However, if you're doing a direct application to the school and there's a space for a personal statement, you could make it fairly tailored to the school because it's only going to that one school. So if you've got a UCAS personal statement and then a different school you're doing a direct application to, you could just take bits from your UCAS personal statement and then adapt it for the school that you're doing the direct application to. However, I would suggest making it as tailored as possible to the school. So you might choose to take bits of it, put it in your direct application personal statement, and then change it a bit so that it becomes more specific to that school and why you want to go to that school or do that particular course or whatever it is. The other thing to note is they may have different word or character limits on direct applications, so you could have to do like a much shorter one than your UCAS personal statement, for example. So next thing I want to talk about is photographs. So a lot of schools ask for a photo of you. Yeah, so my photo that I submitted was not professionally taken. I didn't have a professional headshot done. It was just taken in my garden. I did try to make it fairly like headshot style, but it wasn't a professional headshot. And yeah, I used one of those photos that we took outside for most of my applications. I think at least one of the schools asked for a passport style photo, and I might have used my passport photo or taken another one that was more passport style and less headshot style. But I'm not 100% sure whether I did that just one year or both years, or whether I did that at all. Anyway, it might be worth having a photo of you. Just look at what the schools that you're applying to ask for before you sit down to do your applications. Also, some schools ask me for photos of me in various like ballet positions. I think this was for alignment and things like that. I can't remember what the positions were 100% for all the schools, but I think it was things like stand in first position, in second arabesque, things like that. So again, if you check beforehand which ones that the schools that you're applying to want, then you can do the photos before you sit down to apply, and then hopefully it'll be quicker when it comes to sending it off. So other things that I would say it's good to have prepared before you come to do your applications is having maybe like a list or something of things like music exam results, dance exam results. I think it would have been so much easier if I'd written down at the beginning a list of all the exams I did, all the dates and all the results I got, rather than getting out the certificates. Maybe at some point I did just start logging into UCAS and copying them from there because I didn't want to go and get the certificates out again. But anyway, I would say if you can write them down beforehand, it might be easier for you. Things like dance exams, music certificates, things like Lambda exams, anything like that. And also things like your A-level results, your GCSE results, if you don't know them off the top of your head, if you don't know the date that you did it, results in general, it just might be handy to have jotted down before you start doing the applications. Also, you might want to have like a resume or a CV of things you've done. I'm talking in terms of like performances, like shows you've done, competitions you've done, like a list of your dance training. Also talking of writing down dates and things. If you work out for one of your applications like how many years you've done singing lessons and therefore when you started, for example, you might want to then write that down on your bit of paper so that next time you don't need to work it out again, you can just look at your bit of paper. But anyway, yeah, like a resume or a CV of anything that you've done, you could then use some of those things to put in your personal statement. Or I think one of the schools that I applied to this year, there was the space to attach a short CV. Sometimes they might give you space to put in something like that somewhere in their form, or at least some of the information from that. Another thing that you might want to have prepared is references / people to give you references. It can depend on the school how many they want and like I think who they want references from. I did 2 years of applications, one for starting in September 2021 and one for starting this year, September 2022. But I think in at least one of the years when I was applying, for some of the applications I needed an academic reference, I think, and for some of them I think I needed a reference that was more like practical. So you might want to contact people beforehand and ask if they're happy to be put down to give you a reference, ask what their contact details are or whatever information it is that you need to put on your form. I think some of the forms either allowed me to or asked me to upload the reference or put the reference on there myself, rather than them contacting the person to ask for the reference, in which case you might need to ask the person to write the reference and then get the reference from them to put on your form, whereas for some of them you might just need their details, and then the school or UCAS or whoever it is might contact the person to ask for the reference. Okay, so they are some things that I think you might want to have prepared before you start your applications. So just a few more tips. Firstly, I would say to start the form earlier than you need to, just in case you find that there's some element that you haven't pre-prepared or that you're going to need to take a bit of time doing. Like you might find that you didn't take a photo in a particular ballet position that they're asking for or something. So yeah, I'd just say to start it earlier than you need to, so that you know you have enough time to do it in. I would also say that if you're having any problems, you can email them for help. I emailed quite a few of the admissions teams or admissions people at the schools. Sometimes it was technical problems, sometimes it was I wasn't sure what to include or like what format to put various things in, etc, etc, or I just wanted to check something. But yeah, I would advise if you're having problems or you're not sure, email the admissions teams or whichever email address they give you. Just send them a quick polite email and hopefully they'll be able to help you. Finally, just keeping an eye on your deadlines, which I mentioned at the beginning, and I would say try to submit early in case there are any issues with your form, like there's a technical problem and it won't submit or something. Also bear in mind that the admissions people may have certain working hours, so for some of them they might not work over the weekend, for example. So if it's due in on a Monday morning, for example, you might not want to try and submit it late on a Friday night, because if there were an issue then they might not be able to get back to you before the form's due in. So yeah, I would advise submitting earlier than you need to, keeping an eye on your deadlines. One final thing that I want to mention, which is kind of linked to things to prepare and also kind of linked to like deadlines, is about when you want to apply. In general, when you've applied to a course at like a drama school type place or a dance college or performing arts college, you will then have to audition, and after you've applied, that's when they can send you your audition date. Now, I think I've spoken about this before, but in general, the later you apply, the later your audition date is likely to be, and the earlier you apply, the earlier your audition date is likely to be. Now, you might not be able to prepare your audition material before you send in the application, because it might be they send you the details about the audition after you submit your application. However, if you can prepare some audition material beforehand, that could be helpful. When I was doing my applications this year, I did email several schools, I think, and I asked them for a slightly later audition date after they sent me an audition date, so you could choose to do that. But it's just worth being aware that they might send you quite a soon audition date. When I was applying the first year to Mountview, their applications opened quite early, so I sent in my application quite early, and I didn't really think about the fact they might send me quite a soon audition date. I think they sent me an audition date that was 2 weeks after they emailed me with the audition material. And I had a bit of an injury, or I was recovering from an injury or something like that around that time. And I did email them and ask them if they could push it back, if I could have a later audition date, which they did say that I could have. But I think their policy both years that I've been applying is that you can move your date once, and then after that you have to pay for another audition. I don't know if that's still the case this year, but it's just something that it might be worth bearing in mind. Just in general, I think it's worth bearing in mind that once you've sent in your form, they could send you an audition date that's fairly close. And so if it says on their website what you need to prepare for an audition, then it could be worth preparing that before you send in the application. Although if they then send you more information, I would recommend reading that carefully as well, just in case there's any differences, in which case you might want to email them to just double check. But if they don't have any information on their website, then I'd just say it might be worth being prepared to start preparing for your audition at the point that you send in your application. Okay, so I think that those are all the points that I wanted to share with you in this video. I hope it's been helpful, and if it has, please do give it a like to let me know. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. As I'm filming this, when I checked earlier today, I think I'm on like 91 subscribers, and I'd really like to get to 100 by the end of 2022. So if you enjoy my videos and you want to see more of them and you can subscribe, then that'd be great if you subscribed. If you've got any other tips, then please do write them in the comments section below. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Bye!